What's up, ZBrushers? Welcome back to Z Fever. My name is Ricky, and today I'm going to be going over a little technique for creating hair in ZBrush for R7. First, I'm going to touch on a bit of an older method. It's not that old, but well, I guess it is. We're gonna look into some Fibermesh real quick, and this question came up in one of the ZBrush forums, or not the forums, but one of the groups there on Facebook. Someone was having a little bit of trouble with the way their hair was working with them. So what I wanted to do was first go through a little bit of fiber mesh, and then see how we can use Nanomesh to create hair in maybe a little bit more manageable way. So if you hear dogs in the background, it's because I'm recording this outside. I'm at home visiting my parents. My dog actually just had surgery, so I wanted to come home and see her. All right, so let's kick this off. So what I have is just this mesh that I've been working on for a little bit. What I've gone ahead and done is I've divided it up into some polygroups because I want to be able to use this to mask off areas, and I don't want to just guess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate I'm going to isolate just the polygroups that I need, and yes, I'm going to give him some sideburns just because I can. So I'm gonna mask those out. All right, so let me get rid of some of these areas I don't want. So get rid of you. All right, that should be good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over with a masking tool, mask the entire thing, come back. Then I'm going to open up my Fibermesh palette. Right now I just want to create a preview. Not going to lie, that's pretty sick. Now you can load a preset. ZBrush has quite a few presets, but we're just going to go with what's readily available. So we'll open up our modifiers, and I'm just going to leave most things at the default. I'm going to cut out the variables, all these variables. I'm just going to bring them all down because I just want everything at its base. No twist, no nothing. And not really going to bother with the color. So one of the problem that the gentleman was having was that while he was working with Fibermesh, he was having problems with the program crashing on him. So let me get this situated. And I think I'm just going to go with this default. And I'm just going to say, hey, you know what? I'm good with this. I'm going to accept. Boom. Yes, yes, thank you very much, ZBrush. All right, now, the reason you don't see it is because previously I'd soloed this. And you will notice that with those polygroups, that originally had translate over to the fibers themselves, and I will show you where this comes in as useful. Now, whenever ZBrush spits out these fibers, you're still on the subtool that you pulled it from. And so I'm going to go ahead and clear the mask. You won't really see a difference, but you can also see that it picked up a little bit of the polygroup on the edge, and that's simply because I didn't shrink the mask. That would be something that you might consider if you're going to be working with this. See, it spit out whenever I hit the accept button. It spit out a completely separate subtool that is the fibers themselves. All right. So look at this guy. That's so freaking glorious. um, so when you're working with this, Um, you're going to be using your groom brushes, right? And what I'm going to go through and do is I'm going to ball these up a little bit, right, so that they're easier to manage. It's going to be a little difficult because I have this long stretch of hair, and it's probably not going to ball up very well, but we'll see. I'm not going to spend too much time with this method because I really want to show you how to use Nanomesh uh, to get some hair. So the first thing I really want to do is I want to come back over to my Fibermesh, and I want to head over to the preview settings and bump this down a lot, right? This makes it much more easy to manage. And it's easier on ZBrush because it's not having to render this. Whether you realize this or not, ZBrush is running in real time. Um, it's designed uh, with the spirit of like a game engine. If some of you guys may not know this, but Ofer actually spent some time working over at Nintendo. So let's go over here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna head over to my brush palette, and I'm gonna go over to my auto masking, and I'm going to tell it I want to mask by polygroups. So with that turned on, now this brush is only going to work on the designated uh, polygroup that I started clicking on. So I turned that up a little bit because it's a little difficult to see. So I'm just gonna start here, and whenever I designed this guy, I actually started with a symmetrical horse, but I left the head. I moved the body around the head rather than the head around the body. So whenever I'm working up here, I can definitely utilize my symmetry function. So I'm just gonna come in here with this hairball, and might want to turn symmetry on. It might help, right? There we go. All right, so I'm just gonna ball this up, and this is just to get things out of the way, separate things into clumps. Now with this, I'm really not even gonna mess with balling this portion up. What I'm going to do, actually, is turn off symmetry, and I'm gonna grab my groom hair long brush. I'm just gonna double check my modifier, and mask my polygroup is on. So see, it's going to only touch that polygroup. So this is one way that you can, you know, work with. This, this is a power of polygroups right here. So you can have this glorious wind-blown hair. Nothing crazy. I do want to grab these chops though. All right, I'm gonna stop messing around with this. But I think if by utilizing the previs for the gentleman that was having problems with the program crashing, this might make it a little bit less taxing on your system, especially if you're working from a laptop or something like that. And that that all depends on a lot of things. It could not it could be other things. I actually ran into some problems a while back with my paging file. Was just not large enough, so I had to designate some space on another drive. And once I did that, I didn't have any further problems with the program crashing. So let's move on to Nanomesh. All right, so if we're going to be working with Nanomesh, the first thing we're going to need is an insert mesh brush to be able to be used with Nanomesh. So let me first show you how I went through and I made that brush. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be creating a single hair. Now I could have used I could use one of these, but I'm going to show you the process. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and I'm going to grab one of these. I'm going to grab this Ring 3D primitive, and throughout this I'm going to be working out of perspective. All right. So I'm going to come over to the Initialize tab. Bear in mind this is not a Polymesh 3D yet. I want to set a few parameters, so I'm going to set this down to, I'm going to set this to 7. I'm going to also set this to 7. This will just help things work to our advantage. Once I have that set, I'm going to go ahead and adjust my coverage. So I'm going to put it to something less than 180 degrees. And then I'll adjust the scale. Don't go too far because then it's just going to cause that geo at the very end of that to not act nicely. Okay. Um, then I like to go ahead and throw on a little bit of a twist, just a little bit. All right. So once we have that, I'm going to call that good, and I'm going to make this a Polymesh 3D. Before I go through and actually make this a brush, I want to adjust some things just a little bit. So I'm going to use my mask lasso, and all I'm going to do is grab some verts, move them around with my transpose line. All I'm doing is selecting verts, inverting the mask, grabbing the line, and moving things around. Nothing crazy here. Then come back through. I want to straighten this out a little bit. Rotate this out. And the reason I'm doing this is because it's just going to make things easier down the line. Okay. All right. So whenever you are ready to make your insert mesh brush, you want to make sure. I'm going to rotate this just slightly. I'm not crazy about how it was. Go ahead and move it in too. All right. So where was I? So whenever you're going to make your insert mesh brush, you need to be mindful of how you want it to be drawn out on the geometry. So I'm satisfied with the way that this is from this angle, and I'm not in perspective mode right now. I'm not sure that it actually matters, but I like to just go ahead and turn it off just because I like to. Okay, so if you're going to make a nano mesh brush, you're going to first have to create an insert mesh brush. So I'll just click that, say yes, I want to make a new one, and then I'll come right back in and tell it I want to make a nano mesh brush. And what it does is it automatically turns on the Z modeler brush. But before I go any further, I want to save this. Just in case I want to use it later. So now I'm going to head back over to my horse. Where you at, horse? There we are. I'm gonna open up the subtool that I need, which would be this guy. I'm gonna turn everything else off. All right. And so now that I have the Z modeler is already active, and it's already assigned the insert Nanomesh as being the active thing, and I'm going to just go through by polygroup all. Now, I mean, if you wanted to, you can just go down each line and say, I just want to do this one strip, and just go one by one. So let's start with this side right here. So as I draw it out, see how it's laying on its side like like it was whenever I created that brush. And once we have this, we'll go over to our Nanomesh and start adjusting some of these parameters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on fit. So it's going to fit each one of those into the respective polygon. And then I'm going to adjust my alignment so that it aligns with the normal. Sometimes you'll get some anomalies, but just work with it, right? It's nothing that can't be fixed. I'm going to go ahead and scale this up so it's a little more manageable. And then all we got to do is start playing around with some rotational values. Play with the rotational values, and also want to mess around with the offset. Adjust the length. All right. Now, these aren't lining up as much as we would like them, but it's nothing that can't be fixed by the move brush, right? So this isn't too bad. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and call it. So what I would do is I would just go through each one of these, and then whenever I'm done with this, I will go down to inventory, go one to mesh, and see how it drops that geo on there. I'm going to isolate this, and then I'm going to go up to subtool, and I'm going to split hidden. So now this is in its own separate thing. And realistically, if you wanted to, you could just control shift and drag this off and just duplicate the entire thing, but I'm not going to do that. Going to solo this real quick. Come through, grab that. Just with my transpose line, I'm just going to move things around. You see that little stretching right there. That one hair that just didn't want to get with the program. And you just move things around. You can even grab, say, like your move brush or something, right? Give it some shape. Now, it is stretching, but it's giving you some very basic geometry that you can work with. And I turn on dynamic subdivision. And the thing about this is that, if you're just doing something for sculpture's sake, not necessarily for gaming, you can Dynamesh this all together once you're satisfied, and you just have to come back and clean things up a little bit. But you know, at the end of the day, what does that stretching matter? You know, so this is another way of going about things. Turn off solo, and through doing things like this, it's how I started creating. It's how I started creating this guy, right? Nothing crazy, right? And I use the same thing for these wings over here, with the feathers. You know, I made a feather, and then by using my nano brush, Nanomesh, just laid it around. I created a form, and then I laid it across there, and then I came back through with my transposed lines, moved things around, and it still got some adjusting to do, but nothing too terribly crazy. And this is actually part of the preliminary project for a tutorial I'm going to be working on here pretty soon. So once I get this finalized, I'm going to be running through the entire process with you guys. I'm going to break it up. I don't know how many videos it's going to be, but I want to make sure that I take some time and go in depth and want to make an entire project. And if you check out the Z Fever group on Facebook, I've got a bunch of free stuff on there. I'll leave a link to it. Uh, just a bunch of insert mesh brushes, tons of materials, tons of alphas, things that I've uh, collected throughout the years, and some things that I've made myself. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'm no problem answering anything. Sometimes it does take a little bit of time, but I will get back to you. I want to thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and happy ZBrushing, guys. Take care.